Hello, and welcome to Connect to Love here on PRN FM, where we explore the beautiful tapestry of love, oneness, and the human spirit. I am Lisa LaRose, and I am joined by the wonderful Michael J. Russ. I want to say hello, Michael. We have an exciting show today. Lots of things to speak about.
Always, yes. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much.
It is always such a delight. And Michael sends me different things, and I will tell you, it just opens up a whole magical realm of synchronicity for me. And it's hard for me to focus a little bit once I get back into my body after watching some of the things that he sends me. And so one of the things that he sent me was a video with Robert Edward Grant, and there is a quote that I absolutely love. He's one of the people that I follow. That everything is in its right place at the right time in its right form. And it is a beautiful reminder for me about synchronicity. I think the first time that I ever heard the word synchronicity, it had to do with the Police album, Synchronicity, many years ago. I had no concept that Carl Jung coined it as a meaningful coincidence, but I believe that it is more than a coincidence. So the fact that Michael J. Russ sent me two videos, one with Robert Edward Grant and the second with Veda Austin and Pam Gregory talking about the door to consciousness and that connection, I think that it was more than just a synchronicity. I think that it is the universe's way of saying that you're in alignment. The universe is orchestrating all the components, and we're bringing everything together. Everything is connected. And we just have to look for the guidance and the signs because they are truly not random. And one of the things in the Door to Consciousness video and the connection, it all has to be connected with water. And we are either between 60% to 75% water. They say that babies and young children have the most 75% water in their body, and if we stay hydrated, maybe we can aspire to that, because what we're about to share on this episode is nothing short of mind-blowing, because there are no accidents, and consciousness and water and love are all connected. So, Michael, I'll just let you start off by sharing what inspired you to share those two videos with me, and we'll delve into our thoughts about them.
Thank you very much. My fascination with water beyond being a hydrating substance began a couple of years ago when I came across a book called The Anahata Codes and another book, a companion book that Holly Hollowell wrote, that it was pretty amazing. It was called An Alchemist's Guide to Water Bending. It was called Light Memory. And in that book, she talked about how you could program water to help you heal, to help you physically and mentally. And the Anahata codes were codes that she intuited from her guide, codes that could do just about darn well anything, and that you would program some crystals with some particular round crystals that she offered, that I happen to have about 4 of, and you could program water with these codes and then drink that water. After 24 hours, drink that water. And it's an amazing concept, but it started me on this little path of thinking about water differently. Now, 25 years ago, Masaru Emoto was my first encounter with this, and I know you, Lisa, had the same encounter with Masaru Emoto, and I believe you saw him live, did you not?
I did. I had the distinct pleasure of hearing him speak live. Now, he spoke through a translator, but he was absolutely incredible. And one of the things that really struck me in that lecture that he did was, he said, I'm done with adults. He said, I'm going to focus on children. Children have so much more ability to see. And I thought, wow, that's really interesting. But they were the ones who were open. And that's really sort of where he focused. But he wrote so many books. The first one was The Hidden Messages in Water, and then he followed it up with The True Power of Water, all about healing and discovering ourselves, which was an absolutely fascinating book. And then he followed that up with The Secret Life of Water and The Miracle of Water and Messages from Water and the Universe, which I just found so fascinating. They're just absolutely amazing. And when you start to really look at the healing power of water and the water crystals, it just is nothing short of phenomenal. When you see those images, they are really, truly transformational. And for any of our audience members that may not know about his work, basically he built a big deep freeze with a camera in it, and he would take words and he would wrap it around a water bottle, things like love, gratitude, even things like you make me sick. And then he would freeze the water and look at the crystals. What was so amazing was love was a beautiful crystal, gratitude was a beautiful crystal, but when you put the two together, it was even more amazing. And things like you make me sick didn't even form a crystal at all. And then he went on to test different music and
colors.
Yeah, lots of different things. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, tested everything. But the beauty of it is that it was sort of like high frequency, low frequency. Okay, so everything that would be considered low frequency, anxiety, stress, frustration, he would actually use these words. He'd write these words on a piece of paper and tape them to a glass vial, I believe, and he would freeze it, and he would look at the crystals that would form with that word being written on the container and frozen, and versus other things. And his books give you actual pictures, so you have a visual reference to what he is actually talking about. It brings to life this concept of what negative self-talk does to your body. That's right. Really the way I took it, because I was in the self-talk at the time, and this kind of slipped right in there as being something that was absolutely, totally factual. And I would show this to people. I said, when you say you don't like yourself, when you say you don't love yourself, when you're frustrated, when you're angry, when you're hateful, when you're resentful, when you are revengeful, the water molecules. He proved that the water molecules in your body do change, and that they. I mean, we're talking disfigured, ugly, unrecognizable for the lower frequencies, and beautiful affirmations of positivity and beauty and just amazing formations for the higher frequencies of joy, and like you said, joy and gratitude and love and happiness, all those things. And the music, it was probably the most stellar thing to me was when he played what was it, acid rock versus Beethoven,
classical,
classical or smooth jazz or something, songs that had about love, things of that nature, because that impacted the water molecules as well. And it got me thinking about, wow, this really did validate. I could show a picture to somebody and say, this is what you do to yourself.
Right.
This is how when you talk about you hate yourself, or you could never do that, or you're terrible when you beat yourself up and you're self-deprecating. When you're doing that, when you're beating yourself up and you're having this huge pity party and talking about what you can't do and all that kind of stuff, you are literally impacting your physicality. And he, in my view, proved through his pictures of crystals the placebo effect. What happens when you speak positively about yourself, when you use positive affirmations? There's a totally different formation of the crystal. So that was my first foray into this. Fascinating. Bought several of his books, read them, and to this day I want to show them to people. They're like, oh my God, you got to be kidding me! Really?
As do I.
Yeah.
One thing, Michael, I just want to mention is not only did he take clean water, but he also traveled around and collected water from polluted rivers.
That's right.
And he would take a drop of that water and he would put it into the room, and as soon as the water would start to freeze, the camera would snap and he would take a picture. Well, the polluted water would not form a crystal, and he took that same water and then had a Buddhist priest pray over it, and then did the experiment again, and then it would form a crystal. And the crystals, it was so profound to me because it really did show the energy frequencies have the power to change things, like stagnant, dirty water, like stagnant, dirty thoughts in our mind.
Yeah. That's a very good way of putting it. Absolutely. That when you go from thinking negatively and wallowing in the negative frequencies, hanging out down there, and listening to things that to music and exposing yourself to colors and environments that actually propagate those negative frequencies. You're going from that to positive frequencies can happen in an absolute instant. It's an instant transformation. When you leave that and you go to places that nourish your soul, that actually help you embody love, just like the crystals changed, you can change, and you do change when you change your environment, when you change your thoughts, when you put yourself in a different state of being. So the value of that, to me, the empirical evidence that he provided was the sort of the foundation for even further belief in the value of self-talk for me. Now, Veda Austin, out of Australia, has taken this to an exponential level, because she started out picking up where he left off, and where the water that she froze she would think a thought. And this was the other thing that Masaru did as well. He thought a thought, and then held the water in his hand and infused that thought into the water, froze it, and it basically created a beautiful crystal. But what Veda Austin did was she would use a petri dish, and she would think the thought like sailing or whatever, and she would close her eyes and think about being out on a sailboat, and the feeling of being wind blowing through her hair, and the water and the waves and all the stuff, all the painted the full picture in her mind. And while she was holding the petri dish, and then she would freeze the petri dish, and the petri dish would reveal, as it was freezing, a picture of a sailboat on the water.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, what the heck happened there? I mean, this is mind-blowing stuff. VedaAustin.com has her full story, and we'll put the link in the description of the show. However, what we exposed ourselves to today with this, I mean, Veda's taken us way to, that was the initial stuff. Now she's going to Egypt, and she's involving herself in water that is below the pyramids and other places. I mean, she's really getting knee deep into this, but she's discovered some very interesting things that are mind-blowing, to say the least. Water is everything. She's the first one to have, I believe, coined the term that water is consciousness. That was her conclusion from everything, the research that she did earlier on in the past few years. And
right, so, and some of the things that she's done with consciousness and water, it's responsive not only to intention and energy, but there is also, she's taken pictures of, say, for instance, she took a pendant of a moon, and she set the petri dish on the moon without any thoughts whatsoever, and then she froze it, and that same image would be in the water. And what she, and what I found so fascinating in some of her work was she said she thought about trying to trick the water, and she would put the water in, and she had the intention, she was trying to elicit a certain response, but the water would not respond at all. It knew that there was something that was not right. And it wasn't until she corrected herself and sort of dropped into that open-heartedness and allowed nature, the flow of nature, to just be, that she would get the results. And it's really what's been transpiring recently is just amazing. So I'll let you finish. I apologize, Michael. I just wanted to
don't apologize. That. We both watched the video, and please correct me if I go astray with any of this. But literally, the next thing that she kind of discovered here in the past few months is about the water was actually, I forgot how this came about, but it did, and I don't know whether she was in Egypt the first time or not, but the water began to start, she thinks, telling her things, like communicating with her in a way, because she would freeze water and it would look like it would look like hieroglyphics and some sort in Sumerian language, Sumerian text, which is to the average person, heck, to just about 99.9% of people on this planet, illegible. It's a bunch of strokes and marks, right? But she was seeing patterns in that, and then she moved she talked to some experts in that particular area, and she was unable to really get anywhere. And then she moved through that to actually connecting with some autistic, some kids, young kids, and other children on the autistic spectrum, and discovered something completely different than that she did not expect. That water not only has consciousness, but water is love.
Mm-hmm.
It's just I'm paraphrasing, probably butchering the heck out of this because you really have to.
Well, you know what, Michael? So basically, she was, and we talk about synchronicity, right? We were speaking about that in the beginning, and she happened to be lecturing about her findings with the water that looked to her like hieroglyphs and cuneiform, and she happened to be in Portugal for the annual water conference, and there was a gentleman in the audience who took a screenshot of her presentation, and he said to her, because she said, I think this looks like coding and an ancient language. And so this gentleman put these screenshots into AI and was able to identify through AI that in fact these were patterns, and she had to go way in. And then he reached out to her, and then through another divine synchronicity, she happened to find out about a movie that was all about telepathy. And I apologize, I don't remember the name of the movie that she went to see, but basically the movie was all about autistic, non-speaking community. It was called the Telepathy Tapes, and that. So she reached out to this Dr. Diane Powell, and they had a conversation about her work. And it just so happened that she had an opportunity to connect with these children, and it was through this connection, this synchronistic connection, and also the meeting, that her newest information has sort of unfolded. And I think it's really pretty amazing, because it's nothing that anybody could even have imagined. And who would have thought that screenshot was a doorway to open up another doorway? And this is what she's saying. This is that the water is our doorway to consciousness. And so
it gives a whole new meaning to water. I mean, the whole idea is people around this planet take water for granted, and there's people hoarding water, there's people stealing water, there's people starving other people from having water. I mean, listen, water is the idea that the ideas that are being put forth, the truths, I should say, that are being put forth about water by these by this group of autistic children who have the ability to communicate with themselves telepathically, which is interesting. Brings a whole new dynamic to the whole autistic thing. It's interesting because one of them mentioned that the normal world, so to speak, people in the world, doctors and others that see this as a malady. It's not a malady. It's a gift, and it's one that has allowed them to. These kids are far surpass most kids their age and most adults actually in terms of their ability to grasp cosmic concepts, consciousness concepts. The idea of water. These kids are tapping into records Edgar Cayce kind of stuff. They're tapping into.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Edgar Cayce used to, out of Virginia Beach, used to, back in the 20s and 30s, tap into the Akashic Records and help heal people. And his books are widely known, and his whole library has thousands of readings, and that are incredibly accurate and used today to help people with all kinds of maladies. So the theory is, the idea is that these kids are, these autistic kids are able to connect with themselves telepathically anywhere in the world, and it's a growing body of autistic children, some as young as 8, who are talking about concepts and ideas with regard to water and love and source and God and consciousness that in ways that will blow our minds wide open and make you second guess everything you ever knew about the universe. Let's just say
you're
that.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I have to listen to it again because it's that.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And it's beautiful.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, if you think about water as a living intelligence, and then you go back to the quote from Robert Edward Grant, everything in its right place at its right time in its right form. Being autist is which Veda Austin, they said that children, they like to be referred to as autists. They are in the right place at the right time in the right form. There is not one of us that is not in the right place at the right time in the right form. We forget about it. But the universe does hold this sacred geometry of balance and beauty, and we are not separate from it. And harmony, absolutely. Yeah. But we are expressions of it. And I think that that's what Veda Austin's work. It's all about water consciousness. Water remembers. Water responds. It responds to emotion. And then it reflects those synchronicities of the unseen back to us. And because we are mostly water, we're living mirrors for that universal flow. We forget about that. A lot of times we don't like change. We like to stay stuck. We're not looking for the way the universe is naturally flowing. And we've talked about this before, that everything is connected, and synchronicities are those guidance signs, not random. And since our show last week, Michael, I cannot tell you how many times I have looked at my phone and seen 333, or driving behind a car, 333. And I know it's not an accident. And I think sometimes it's a good reminder that when we feel stuck, and it's often because we're in resistance to what we're being called towards. And for anybody who has viewed somebody that is autist in seems a child act out and are uncomfortable by the sounds or whatever, it's, you have to understand these beings, these souls, are in the perfect form. They have allowed themselves to not be in ego. And that's one of the things I really liked about what Veda was saying. She said these children don't have an ego. So they've eliminated that need for validation. They are just beings of light. And there's a young boy, I see him with his parents, and then there's a nurse who cares for him. He's probably between 18 and 20. Not only is he autistic, but he's blind. And so he will be with one of his guardians, and he's walking through with a shopping cart, and he loves music, and he sings. He doesn't have any headpiece in there. He's listening to music. He's just hearing it in his head. And he has the most beautiful big smile. Whenever I see him, it just lights me up. And I have stopped his parents and said, every time I see your son, it just brings me so much joy, because he is in a beautiful space of joy all the time. Yeah. I've never not seen him in that space. And it's a gift. It really is.
Well, not that I'm not here to ruin the party or anything like that about water or anything, but Robert Edward Grant was referring to, I think this kind of dovetails onto this, he was referring to how we have sort of like all of us have drank the Kool-Aid, so to speak, and with regard to grit, grind, and capitalism, that we are taught from an early age not to focus on our own gifts and curiosities and intuition and any other gifts we came into this life with, and that we should straighten up, fly right, and get good grades in school and go to college and get a job and be a functional consumer in society. And what gets lost in the mix of all of that is people's unique talents, gifts, and skills. It gets totally wiped out. You're telling those things have no value. That's the first thing you're taught, that they have no value for you, that you're not going to make a living. And parents will just drill this into their heads, I think, out of fear that their kid won't be able to support themselves. And these autists have brought a whole new meaning to me, but in terms of people who are autistic. And I've always thought, and I've talked to some people and who have children on the autistic spectrum, and it's about, and I've seen stories, it's about not trying to put a square peg in a round hole. It's about basically allowing them to expand and explore and discover their unique talents and gifts. And because those talents and gifts, although maybe they don't fit the norm of society, and you can go get a job in an office and type out 100 words a minute or whatever, it's or work on a computer, or and some kids who are autistic have the capability to do that, whatever your gift may be. I'm not poo-pooing anything here, but it's about allowing young people to determine why they're here, right? Mm-hmm. Why are you here? Everybody has a reason for being here, and it's not to become a billionaire for everybody, right? It's about and because there's way too much of focus on that nowadays, on making money and supporting yourself, and marketing your talents and all that kind of stuff. And really, there's transformation going on in our world right now. And in my view, what could be the best possible outcome? People having the ability to discover who they are, and to come together in connection, and to get rid of judgment. And this is the other thing that Robert Grant talked about too, in terms of, and I agree with him wholeheartedly, love cannot exist in a space where judgment exists, and vice versa, right? We have to unconditional love, complete acceptance of good and bad, what we deem to be good and bad, acceptance of everything, right? It's about accepting in nowadays, instead of the duality of the political dualities, the dualities of rich and poor, all these kinds of things, positive, negative, this and that, just simply saying, you know what, I accept all of this. That's unconditional love, is acceptance of what is, and not trying to judge it, not trying to change it, not trying to control it. It's just acceptance of what is. How do you feel when you do that? And I challenge our audience to just go through one day making an attempt to have as few judgments as possible and just accepting circumstances. Not judging an accident as tragic. It's happening for a reason, as we just said. Everything is in its right place at the right time. So going with that, coming full circle around to connect to love, the unconditional love you have for yourself, the unconditional love you have for the world around you, which is what Robert Grant was talking about, which is a very profound statement, right? It's being able to unconditionally accept everything around you, and not try to be. As a matter of fact, I believe he defined it, unconditional love, in two ways, and that was, one was judgment, having no judgment whatsoever, and being able to not care about being right or wrong.
Right. Yeah. And we spoke about Robert Edward Grant. It was quite some time ago, but he did a TED Talk called Beautiful Minds Are Free from Fear. And he's a polymath. And for those of you who may not know what a polymath is, Leonardo da Vinci was a polymath. And he's an inventor, and he's done so many things in both science and spirituality and innovation, and he travels to Egypt, and I watched the Kodak series on Gaia with him, right. And he's always got this amazing curiosity and is all about being an advocate for consciousness and expansion and human potential, which I think is really wonderful. And he has all of these incredible achievements. I mean, he had successful companies. He's, involved in healthcare. He's involved in all of these different things. But he kind of took a step back from building and amassing, and then came back and he's like, this is all about love. None of this stuff. I still enjoy all these things, but it's all about love, which I think is really fantastic.
It's a way of what's interesting when you hear him talk, and I'm sure what we'll have to do is I'll have to see, but I think I sent you that link, but we'll have to put that link in the description as well, so our audience can check out his interview on Next Level Soul, which I found illuminating, to say the least. And it's a good reminder for us about the value of love and the value of what really matters in life. And that one of those things beyond love is curiosity. It's curiosity, and it's joy, and it's fun. And that's why we're here, to have fun. And we've been, in my view, and the view of many, many other people, sold a bill of goods about fun is overrated, joy is overrated, love is overrated, and it's not. It really, really isn't. And we get in our own way when it comes to experiencing love and experiencing connection. We get in our own way. There was a woman at the beginning of one of the videos I saw today who was, I guess she was somebody who was, I didn't get her name because I was driving, but I was listening to it, and she was one of the ladies who was in The Secret. She is energy. She deals with energy and a lot of other different things. But it was interesting because she was talking about how we have how when we get on our way, she's given this example that evidently she gave on The Secret. I'll bring it up. It's been a long time since I've seen that particular movie, but I found it very interesting. There was this gentleman who she'd worked with who had was wondering why he couldn't find love. He couldn't really connect with women, and it turned out he was a businessman, but he was also an artist. And she went to his house and found out all the art he had was he drew art, created art of the women looking the other direction. they were all looking away from him. They were all looking away from him. And she said, well, here's one of your problems. Is that you don't see women in your sphere. You don't see them in your energy field. You see them away from you, right? And she said, turn around and start painting what you want, instead of what you don't want. You're psychologically you're creating this circumstance for yourself through your art. And when he started painting, he says, I don't really want just women in my life. I want a family. I want kids. I want children. I want somebody I can connect with on a loving level, and we can raise a family together. That's really what I really want. He says, she said, well, draw that, paint that, create that in your life, and put those paintings on the wall. And she ran into him 6 months later, and his whole life had changed tremendously. Women were wanting to connect with him, speak with him, date him, whatever it was. And he eventually found someone who he connected with on that level, and his deepest desire came true because he got out of his own way energetically. He was creating energy that didn't align with what he really wanted in life. And so she just made him aware of that, and he changed things around. But it's amazing how this is what we do all the time. We do with love. We let judgment get in the way. We let right and wrong. We let these kinds of things get in the way. And when we let the need to be right, to point someone out as being wrong, to control and to judge because somebody or someone doesn't really fit your mold, so to speak, and we judge them, or we judge anything,
Right.
A tree without leaves is still a tree. It's still a beautiful work of art. It still has a value. It has purpose. It still communicates. It's still alive, right? So it doesn't. We have this tendency to push things away from us. That when really what we should be doing is being inclusive with all of it. And
you're right.
That's what love is. It's about including it, not judging. So
I love that, and now I love that story though, Michael, because it just shows you that when you limit your perspective, it doesn't allow you to see the forest through the trees, so to speak. It's what's right in front of you. And sometimes that's exactly what it is. We're waiting. But if we understand that the universe is always in perfect balance, that all things unfold. And so sometimes those challenges, he wasn't able to meet women. It was an opportunity. I'm sure that as he shifted his perspective, his artwork became even more beautiful, because as he was painting women and families and the things that he wanted to do, it's sort of like you're embracing that flow and you're shifting that energy and you're becoming attuned to all of those things that were guiding him on his path that he couldn't see because it was just not there. And he was putting all of those other blocks in. And I think that that's really important. I mean, there's so many synchronicities in my life. I count my blessings every day. Even sometimes the things that are challenges, I don't know sometimes how things come across my path. And then maybe a year later, I'll look back and go, oh my gosh, I see why X, Y, Z had to happen in order for these doors and for me to step into a new reality. Because otherwise it wouldn't be there. And I think that's, sort of the wisdom. And I think when we accept the fact that there is this balance in the universe, that this water flows, that connects us, we have this water inside of us, and it's so kind of like a dynamic self-regulating system where everything is in constant interaction. And that's what I really took away from both the interview with Robert as well as with Veda, and how how interwoven everything is. And so sometimes there might be these events that you just can't see. And I'm still smiling because I think about when you got your sweet little dog, that you were very, I remember when you lost your dear one, and no, you weren't open to it. And I'm a dog person thinking, well, no, it doesn't, it's not in alignment with what we want to do and travel and things like that. And then you're driving and your girlfriend sees a sign. It said, Corey puppy.
Next thing you know, a day later, we're picking up a little, 3.5-month-old. That's the best thing. Let me just do this before I talk about a little cobalt for a second. But I want to step back because we have listeners from all over the world and in countries where they might not understand the comment of the colloquialism of not being able to see the forest for the trees. And so I'm just going to step back, because, my second wife was German, and when I said that sort of thing, she'd go, what do you mean by that, right? So I'm just going to be very, very frank and just give a little brief explanation. When you could be standing at the edge of a forest. You see trees before you, but you don't see everything else. And nowadays they have drones, which there could be there's trees that could go on like the Tongass National Forest in Alaska, which is 500 square miles, right? So you're standing looking at one tree, and what's interesting is the concept of not being able to see the forest for the trees that are right in front of you. That's a micro focus. The macro focus is to rise above that and see that 500,000 hectares of trees exist beyond that. And we get caught looking in many cases we look not beyond the tips of our noses, right? Just what we can see or we can touch with our noses. That's kind of what I'm saying. But little cobalt. Yeah, I mean, I hope that's a better explanation because that's what and
I just want to interject one thing, because when you said that, it also reminds me of the ecosystem, that where every organism plays a vital role. And so within that forest or within the microcosm that is wherever you are in this world, the universe operates on a similar principle. Every event is contributing to the delicate and perfect equilibrium of all.
And balance.
No matter what it is. Yes, the balance.
So true. That's great. You know what happens when you bring a new one home, a little furry creature. It's just like having, I guess. I've never had kids. However, parents that I know revel in the fact that in their children's curiosity and seeing something for the first time, and I revel simply in seeing the look on little kobolds. We've got a Welsh Corgi, a Pembroke Welsh Corgi tricolor, who's absolutely got big ears and fat little feet, short legs, and a butt that looks like a heart. Okay, because he's got black fur. You see him walk, and everybody loves to see a corgi walk because the little butt wiggles, and you see this little heart go back and forth, and that's why they're called heart butt corgis. And so, it's true, heart butts, because they got a little heart butt. It's got. If people say, "Hey, how cute is your little corgi's heart butt?" You know, I mean, that's what corgi owners talk about. Is the little heart butts that are designed at the fur, the white fur meeting the black fur forms a heart because they have no tails. So when you look at them, it's what I'm getting to here is the curiosity, the look in his eyes, the surprise that occurs when you bring something out for the first time that he's never seen. You know, how they react to a vacuum cleaner sound, or they react to being in a car, or anything. You know, that might occur, things that we take for granted is on a daily basis. You know, the running of the dishwasher. You know, if you've got a loud dishwasher, they'll sit there and look at it kind of quizzically and go, "What is that?" You know, the feeling of ice. We had snow here for the first time, I think, in 100+ years. The snow we had in January was at the beginning of February. I think it was anywhere between 6 and 10 inches, depending on where you were. And now, no corgi we've ever had has ever seen snow, but it was so fun to see him as a pup out because he likes to eat ice. And so he was jumping in the snow. At 10 inches, at that particular time, I think his belly was maybe 3 inches off the ground. So he was in the snow, jumping up like a rabbit in the snow, and then stopping and then eating. Uh-huh. I'm sorry. There's 100 different events like that, but it's fun. Bottom line, it's really fun and joyful, and there's a lot of love there. I was gone for the day today, and I got a text that he was missing me. You know, he was moping around and sitting, waiting for me to see where I was. We play together every morning, and he missed that. So that's the first thing I did when I got home is get down on the floor and play with him, and take him outside and have the joyful love. He's pretty amazing as a little fur ball. He's fantastic. So thank you for bringing that up.
It can be just that simple, Michael. Really, it can be just that simple. That when you're resisting something, that's a natural flow of energy. Both you and your girlfriend are animal lovers, and so you by blocking that, it's like not so much. But there is a feeling of unconditional love that you receive from that little soul. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that was sort of interesting because that was one of the things that every one of the autist children that Veda Austin communicated with all said the same thing about water, the connection to God and love.
Right.
That was it. Really,
there
was some. Yes, that's what water represents.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's a pretty mind-blowing statement, actually. That water is love, water is source energy, water is God. It flows through everything. It's everywhere in the universe. Water exists, and water is in everything at one point or another.
And that was one of the questions that Veda asked actually every child, what is water? And the one little girl, she didn't have verbal skills, so she spelt it out on her keyboard. Mm-hmm. And the mother spoke to Veda, and she said, G-O-D, God. And that's what's flowing through your brain, your body. There was another quote. There was another thing about it flowing through your veins. Did you by chance remember what that was? And I apologize.
That's okay. Hold on. I took some screenshots of some things, so I definitely have several of the particular ones. But I start out with Sammy, who said water is a redeemer. Is that the one you're talking about? It's cleansing. It washes away, much like source energy. The mysterious water would dazzle. There's another one that let's see here, that I found very, very profound. Water is the expression of the Creator's first love.
Yeah, and they said something about the realm of consciousness, that the code is a doorway. So what she said was AI was not able to give her what these children were able to teach her about water.
Right.
That water in the realm of consciousness the code was a doorway, and that each little line is a doorway. And if we go back to those lines, it represents God consciousness. And so if we think about that flow of water and how much percentage that we are water, that it's flowing through deep inside the cells of the body. So it's like that stream of consciousness. It was just really mind-blowing.
The fact, I mentioned this before we talked, but one of the other things that one of the children said is that there are more water molecules in your body, than there are stars in the universe, in the galaxies, and all the stars. There's more than that, and it's when you start putting it on that level. I mean, you're looking up to somebody who around the world who's listening to us, who can step outside at night and see literally millions of stars, billions of stars. Because I've got too much ambient light where I am, and perhaps you do too. But it's a mind-blowing statement. It is. It kind of makes us recognize that we are grains of sand on the beach in a cosmic dance that is going on, and that is much greater than us. But yet we are all connected.
Mm-hmm.
We're all connected. Water connects us all. Love connects us all. Source energy, God energy connects every one of us. And the one thing that we do on this planet more than anything else is we seek separation. That's what the personality does. It seeks individuality, separation. Now, in my view, good idea to experience this earthly realm, this construct, in a way that is in line with what you're here for. Nothing wrong with that, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's when we intentionally and with purpose and ego separate ourselves from other people by elevating ourselves over other people. That's when things become challenging for us, and out of alignment, out of harmony, out of balance, and which is kind of where we're. If you're anywhere in the world right now and listening, you're kind of dealing with the same thing. We're out of balance. We're out of harmony. And the way to get us back into that is for all of us to focus on love and joy in our lives, in the moments that we of our day, what we love about ourselves in our life, what we like about ourselves in our life, what brings us joy, what helps us experience fun. Do things that are fun.
And I think, Michael, that stagnation, the feeling of being stuck in any area of our lives, whether it be emotional, physical, romantic, or spiritual, it's really just an illusion. The universe is always in motion. We're never really stuck. And it's just moving our feelings through that aligns us with that movement. And one of the children, and this really stuck with me, his name was Noah, and he described water as the expression of the Creator's love. It's that being the Creator never wants to separate from, therefore it's in everything. It's love. And so when you recognize that, when you have an uncomfortable feeling, that feeling being stuck, it's not a punishment. It's a loving nudge from the universe. Like, okay, it's time to release this and embrace whatever that change is. Open up and allow yourself to flow into love. flow into love. I mean, that just, and I think that's the wonderful thing about the analogy of water and what we're speaking about, because water is very wise. And if we embody that flow, the wisdom of water, that's how we change. And it can be really effortless to navigate any obstacles, no matter what they are. Because if you think about water, I mean, I've had leaks in a roof. Water always finds its way.
Yeah, path of least resistance.
Mm-hmm.
To wherever it wants to go.
Yep. Exactly.
We can use that as a metaphor too for ourselves and our lives and moving forward and arriving where we're supposed to be with the path of least resistance. Yet, again, we'll find a myriad of different ways, a number of different ways to resist. Judging this as being good, that as being bad, that path not. Just listen to your heart. One of the other things I believe that Robert, that I got from Robert, the Robert Grant interview was operating from the heart. Mm-hmm. Operating from the heart, being able to not depend so much on what other people say, but depending on teaching yourself to feel, to become a master of understanding your own feelings and nuances about how you feel. Because I think it was, remember the last show or the show before that, it was like the first inclination is generally your heart, and the second one is your head, right? Because you start thinking, oh, well, wait a minute, hold on a second. If I actually do that, then I won't get paid, or if I do that, I won't make any money, or if I do that, I won't, or maybe that was Abraham that said that. Perhaps it's good, but it was a great analogy. It was a great example of what we have a tendency to do. We have a tendency not to live from our heart, not to go with our first inclination, our first thought, first idea. If we ask ourselves a question and we get a feeling of, yeah, I like that, and then the second we think about it, we start thinking, bringing all these other doubts and fears into the mix, and then it becomes a head decision, right? Mm-hmm. And the heart decision is always the right way to go because it's in alignment with why you're here and what you're supposed to be experiencing, and the synchronicities that come from going with the heart, your heart's decision, are always the right ones. The ones you're supposed to have. The synchronicities will be there for you. And you have free will. Hey, you can do whatever you want. You can decide, to just stay in your head all the time. And I know people who are like that. They stay in their head all the time. The thing about that is, when it comes to experiencing love, there's less of an experience of love when you're in your head all the time.
Right.
You're not making decisions based on anything loving, right? It's a mind exercise, and coming down from your mind to your heart. That's the practice. That's the focus that takes you the farthest. That's what I love about it.
Yeah, and the universe does never make mistakes. You're right. I think about that was one of the takeaways I got, from both of them. I think there has been a transformation. I have been following Robert Grant for a long time, and I see not just an energetic transformation, but just a physical transformation in who he is, and he's really stepping into the truth of what he is here to do. And I think Veda's sort of the same way. She said she was always very careful about how she would align herself because she didn't want anybody to see her research as woo-woo. And so to be able to communicate with these children telepathically, she was a little bit apprehensive. And then what she found was she was immersed in such a state of unconditional love from these kids that it has totally transformed her. And I think that's really what it is. It's like you get called to this connection, and once you're on that energetic train, there's really no stopping it. And I love that. And again, no accidents. These synchronicities lead us to where we're supposed to be. And from everything that I hear from so many different thought leaders, in consciousness, that humanity is elevating. We are coming into, on the April 12th, no planets will be in retrograde. They will all be in alignment. For us to be able to harness and channel those energies of like, wow, like let's just move forward full steam ahead into connection and love. I think it's fantastic.
I do too. These portals of opportunity exist, and I know for some of our listeners here on PRN-FM, it can be if you can be caught up in the 3D world to the point where it can be a challenge to stay in a space of love and joy and fun. However, I'm going to make the assumption that if you're listening to us here on PRN-FM or you're listening to our podcast, Connect to Love, that you are beyond just being in the 3D world of drama. You're listening to us because you would love to operate full-time from a perspective of love, and you're seeking how to do it. And that's why we're here, to help you operate from that space. And because we're practitioners of it. Nobody here is a master. And that's the beautiful thing about it. Neither of us are masters of that. We're on this journey with you. And it should be said that it is a day-to-day focus to be in love, to be in joy, to find the joy in everything, to approach life every moment from a foundation of love instead of the alternative, right, which is every other negative frequency that exists on the spectrum of frequencies. And that's what I love about this conversation that I have with Lisa once a week here on the show, is that it not only is this a reminder for you, but it's a reminder for me too. And we're exposing ourselves to things that are above our pay grade, yet we're embracing them because we know that when we do, we become a part of it. And that's the beautiful thing about it. We become a part of it. I don't know how much time we have left in particular, but I would love to just kind of mention to our audience that we're operating a little bit of an experiment right now, the Power of 8, which is in encouraging you, our listeners, to tell eight people about this radio show here on PRN-FM, or if you're listening to our podcast, the podcast Connect to Love, tell 8 people about it. Share it with them. You never know who's seeking enlightenment beyond where they are. You don't know how people are feeling because people don't tell you how they feel, truly. They may be looking, they may be searching in secret. And by sharing the something that you heard that found interesting, sharing it with them, you never know how it might impact their life. And in many cases, I can guarantee you, if you're sharing it, it's the right time for them. If you're thinking of it, it's the right time. Synchronicity is in your favor. So I just wanted to say that.
That's beautiful, Michael. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I couldn't have said it better. Thank you. Because I do believe that synchronicity is an invitation for us all to understand that there is an inherent perfection of the universe, and we are truly all connected. And encourage everybody to practice loving kindness and embrace the flow and just step into this beautiful rhythm of the cosmic dance of love and flow. I just love it. Thank you, Michael, and thank you, all of you, for joining us, because we couldn't be here without you, and we're just so grateful. Until next time, enjoy the journey of discovering connection.
Thank you.